Today, with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi turning 75, which is a big deal in his party, we're going to step back from the day-to-day policy debates. Instead, we're going to deconstruct something much more fundamental, his very distinct style of leadership.
So, we're diving into a really detailed analysis to break down the core components that have really shaped his entire political journey, which spans, 4 decades now. All right, let's get into it. First up, the absolute bedrock of his leadership style. It's this direct, almost uncompromising way he translates his ideology into actual government action.
In politics today, a lot of leaders seem to change their positions depending on the polls. But the analysis points out that Modi has this unwavering commitment to the beliefs he formed way back as a young RSS Pratrak. This isn't some ideology he picked up to win an election. It's the foundation he's had all along, and it forms the absolute backbone of his political identity.
Okay, so having an ideology is one thing, right? But what's fascinating here is the method. His style isn't just about the what, it's about the how. He finds these really practical, these long-term goals a reality. Take Article 370. He didn't just tear it up, he used a clause within the Constitution to essentially turn it off. It shows you this core trait. He uses the system itself to drive ideological change.
So, you've got this rock-solid ideology, but then you add a few more ingredients. And that brings us to our second theme, this strategic mix of taking huge risks, selling a grand vision, and just completely controlling the national conversation.
The analysis really hammers this point home. A high-risk appetite. What does that actually mean? Well, it's the willingness to make these bold, unpredictable moves for what's seen as a bigger prize. According to the source, this is what separates a real leader from someone who's just, managing the status quo. And you can't find a better example than demonetization back in 2016. I mean, think about it. With one announcement, 86% of the country's cash was just gone. And here's the kicker. He did it right before a massive, crucial state election. The political blowback could have been absolutely catastrophic, but that was a gamble he was willing to take.
Then there's the Balakot airstrikes. This was another huge one. For decades, it was basically an unwritten rule that India wouldn't cross the line of control. So to shatter that policy against, as the source puts it, a nuclear-armed and unpredictable neighbor, well, that was a massive roll of the dice with some seriously unpredictable consequences.
But it's not just about taking risks. His style is also about actively molding the entire mood of the country. It's about pulling the national conversation away from what the analysis calls professional pessimism and pointing it towards these huge aspirational goals. By rolling out these big visions, he really captures the public imagination and sets the agenda for where the country is headed.
And what's the result of all this? It's pretty clear, right? For more than 10 years, he's basically been the sun that the entire Indian political system orbits around. Doesn't matter if you support him or you're against him, the whole conversation has to be framed in relation to him. He's the one setting the terms of the debate.
All right, let's switch gears a little. Next, we're going to look at how his own personal life and his journey have become incredibly powerful political tools.
The analysis points to his personal story as the super potent political weapon. You've heard it a million times. The chaiwala, the tea seller, who made it to the top without a political dynasty, without any powerful mentors. This narrative paints him as a true outsider, and that projects an image of a leader who isn't tied to family interests, which suggests that his only real motive is the nation itself.
What's just so remarkable here, though, is his adaptability. I mean, his background is a million miles away from the elite circles that most world leaders come from. But it doesn't matter if he's meeting with presidents in the White House or leaders in the Kremlin, he navigates that incredibly complex world of international diplomacy with a confidence that just completely defies his origins. It shows this amazing ability to adapt to literally any room he walks into.
And that ability to adapt, well, it feeds right into the next critical trait, political survivability. Because let's be real, leadership is never a straight line of wins. It's about being able to handle the storms, take the hits, and come back swinging.
And his career is the perfect example of this. Look at the timeline. He comes in with this massive win in 2014, but then bam, he gets hit with a huge setback in 2015. A lot of people thought his momentum was done, but then he comes back even stronger in 2019. Even this year, with a smaller majority, he's still firmly in place. And that resilience, that's what the analysis says is the true mark of leadership.
So, finally, his 75th birthday brings up this really unique question, and it's all about his own party's internal rules. Now, this isn't written down in law anywhere, but it's a very real tradition inside his party. We've seen a lot of really senior, powerful leaders step aside because of it. So, of course, the million-dollar question on everyone's mind is, does that rule apply to the guy at the very top?
Well, according to this analysis, the party's decision really just comes down to pragmatism. The age rule, it's an internal guideline, not some unbreakable constitutional law. As long as he's the party's single biggest vote winner, a rule like that is probably going to stay flexible.
So, at the end of the day, the argument really boils down to this. Leadership is a job. And like any other job, what really matters isn't your age, it's whether you are physically and mentally fit to do it. The whole focus shifts from a date on a calendar to just pure, raw ability.